Hey, what's up? This is Gryffin, and I'm hanging out with Rob on Front Row Live.
It's madness downstairs. Tell me what really goes on before every show.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy, man.
Yeah.
Just so many people coming in and out, especially because tonight I've got a lot of surprises in store
Right, that's right.
for the fans and stuff. So there's just a lot of preparation involved and just making sure everything on the production side, music side is all right and good for showtime. So it's really stressful, but it's like exciting, you know. So it's all good stuff.
Now you already have so much stuff going on a regular tour day. So like you mentioned, today is a special day because you have other people coming in and, you know, surprises and stuff like that. So how does that really work out for you on a tour day? How do you schedule that kind of stuff?
I mean, yeah, it's kind of hard. Well, I got a great tour manager that helps organize everything first off.
Right.
That's like a huge thing for me. But it's a lot of just like being on emails in the mornings and trying to find time in my schedule while I'm traveling and whatnot to arrange stuff and schedule things and make sure it's all tight and ready to go. And also making sure I'm like taking some time to rest and relax too before the show. It's like just trying to find that balance, but it's all good stuff. You know?
Definitely. Now you played tons of instruments, but what was the instrument that really started your journey in music? And while we're on that note with the journey in music, what is it about Thrice that really like got you into music?
Nice, dude. Did some research there. Piano was definitely what started everything for me. I started playing classical music when I was 7,
Right.
and played all throughout grade school and whatnot. So that was sort of like my gateway to other instruments and whatnot. And with the Thrice thing, my cousin being in that band, I really, idolized him growing up and picked up the guitar and started really getting influenced by rock and that kind of music as a result of that. And so those are really like the primary instruments I do, and I picked up drums along the way, but piano is definitely where everything like really started for me.
Right. So how did you get to EDM, from piano classical to the punk scene to this?
Yeah, I mean, I'd always kind of liked dance music when I was younger, like the Chemical Brothers, Fatboy Slim, Daft Punk. They were doing a lot of cool stuff, but I didn't really like feel like compelled to make that type of music really until I got to college. And that was sort of when dance music was really starting to become a thing, and just heard a lot of artists that were doing really interesting stuff from a production standpoint that like really wasn't possible like 10, 15 years ago, I feel like. And so it just kind of opened my mind to what you could do, and that was really exciting for me. And I downloaded like Ableton, the software program, and just started kind of messing around with music in the dance world and electronic world, and trying to apply the background that I have of playing the guitar and piano to try and like fuse the worlds. And that's kind of how it all happened.
And you're mentioning this was all while you were in school too. So how do you really pursue something like that in a professional way and still be able to do college is not easy.
Yeah, no, it's not. And I studied electrical engineering in college, so it was like a pretty intense major, but it really was just kind of a hobby at first. You know, I just like whenever I wasn't studying or working on school, like I just love music. I've always played music my whole life, and it was just so fun for me. And I feel like when you love something, you're always going to make time for it and whatnot. And so that was sort of how it happened. And I just started releasing music kind of to the internet just for fun to see how people would react. And then it kind of just started snowballing from there.
Right.
So.
And then now you're here on tour, sold out tour. Every date has been sold out.
Yeah, it's been crazy.
And
it's been so awesome.
LA is a hard market to sell out, man. And you definitely did that. So walk me into this tour. I mean, you've opened up for other artists before. You've done one-off shows. I believe you were last at the Roxy, but now this is you headlining. So, you know, how different is this tour's performance as opposed to anything else that you've done?
Yeah, it's definitely different. It's been an incredible month because it's just like my first time really coming out and doing a headline thing, and for that reason it's so awesome because everyone that comes into the room is familiar with my music, and really, I mean, I could see all the fans like singing the lyrics and getting really into it, and you just get like an energy and connection with the fans that is like unparalleled. So it's been such an exciting month. I'm like super tired at the same time, but
it's almost done too.
Yeah, and I'm just so pumped to like end it with a bang tonight with all these big surprises I got in store, and it's just gonna be a really good time. So I'm pumped.
And one thing about your music is, you know, a lot of people that don't listen to EDM obviously just assume it's, you know, just pressing the keyboard or whatever. But you have a setup on stage, and you're playing multiple instruments. Tell me a little bit about that performance that you set up on every show.
Yeah, so I mean, my kit itself is basically my piano, keyboard. I've got an SPD SX, which does drums, triggers, and vocal chop samples stuff, and then I've got my guitar. And so really at any given time during a song, I can play any of those three instruments, whatever I want to highlight at that moment, and sort of play and either kind of follow along and do familiar riffs from what the studio version is like, and then I also will sort of reimagine chord progressions and do some other stuff, so you really feel like a live type of show that you don't, and a connection that you don't get just by listening to the master.
Now, are these kind of performances similar to what you do when you're, you know, recording new music, writing new material?
Yeah, definitely. And I think sort of what I've been able to do in terms of translating my music live is that a lot of what I'm writing starts from the piano and guitar.
Okay.
Like I'm not clicking in notes on the software programs. Like it really starts with the instruments for me. And so I think for that reason, I'll write it with the instruments and then kind of translate it to the electronic world, but then I can pull it back into sort of like the live organic instruments, because that's where everything started.
Right. And when it comes down to lyrics, especially with features, do you let the artists that you're featuring write their own lyrics, or do you offer them something that you've already written?
Right now, like for Heading Home, for instance, the first single, that was actually written. Joseph Salvat had basically written most of it over like a church organ and sent it over to me, and I just fell in love with it immediately, and I basically reproduced it and reimagined it and everything, and we started passing it back and forth and finishing it. Right now, though, I'm doing a lot of work, so I'm trying to finish an EP that I want to release later this year, and that's a lot of stuff starting from scratch. So I'm in the studio working with the artists or songwriters and doing lyric writing, top line writing, and then doing the production afterwards. So it kind of happens in different, it's always like a different process, but yeah, it's just kind of going with the flow, and depending on how the creative direction goes, it's kind of...
Now with this debut single, you were stuck on Joseph, even though it was going to take a little longer, but you managed to stick with him and wait it out. But with the EP, the remainder of the songs for the EP, do you already have people lined up, or is it something that you're still trying to figure out who you really want to feature on this?
Yeah, it's kind of both, actually. I already have some songs that are basically finished with the artists that I want to have on them, and then there's other ones where I've got like the singer-songwriter that's written it and like the scratch vocals, but I'm now actively figuring out which vocalists or which artists I want to help me with that. And then also I'll write, you know, just some basic like production and beats, and then pass it around to other artists, see if they want to take a stab at it and write over it and stuff. So the process is just always different. For that reason.
Have any of these processes been actually you in the studio with that artist, or everything's just been, you know, on their own time, your own time?
Yeah, there's a few that have started from scratch in the studio, and it's probably like half and half in terms of passing back and forth, getting a quick little demo and starting passing it back and forth remotely, and then the other times are starting it from just a piano in the studio together, just vibing. So.
Now, aside from the EP, prior to the EP, actually, you were doing remixes, and you still do remixes. How does a remix work? I've always been curious about that. Is it something that you choose the song because you like it and you remix it, and then eventually the artist finds it? Or does the artist actually reach out to you and say, hey, can you remix our song?
Yeah, it kind of... it's both, actually, kind of. What you said, the latter part of what you said in terms of basically sort of finding or... basically, like the first tracks that I ever released was like an Ellie Goulding remix that I did of her song Burn. That was an unofficial one. I mean, I basically grabbed the acapella that was existing online and basically reproduced it, and then her management was like, oh wow, this is really cool, like maybe we want to sign this, and that like started opening the door to other things. But lately now it's kind of, I'll either get asked by a label or by the artist if I want to take a stab at it and remix it. And at that point, I'm sort of fortunate right now that I'm able to sort of select which ones and what directions I want to go in, which is really like nice. So as long as, you know, I really believe in the artist and really like where the place that they're coming from as an artist, and really like the vocal and the lyrics and what's going on within the song, and as long as it moves me in an emotional way, then I really want to take a stab at it and try and flip it into something else.
I feel like by doing remixes, you know, you can eventually, if the song has died out, you can eventually bring it back to life. Or if the song didn't do so well in the first place, you can eventually give it the life that it deserves, right?
Right, absolutely. I mean, you can already see that with a lot of, even like the Mike Posner song that's all over the radio right now. Like, it's an incredibly well-written song from Mike Posner, but it was so stripped down and acoustic, and then the remixer flipped it into like a dance number, and now it's all over the radio. So that's exactly what you said. It can, flipping a track can on its head can really like take it to a different level, really. Right. So
now, lastly, I'm sure you've already heard it, Justin Timberlake's new song. Yeah, is that something you would want to remix, or is that something you don't even want to touch?
I mean, oof, that's a tough question. I mean, it's a really, really cool song.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to think about that one. But
is there such thing as a perfect song, like in this case?
I mean, it's pretty good. It's definitely one of those like instant earworms where you're like, yeah, that's a hit. Right. That's a hit record. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know if I'll remix it, but it's a jam, that's for sure.